on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of CryptoZombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you had an excellent weekend so far. We did, in fact, have the low volume weekend hopium. We got up to about $36,000. Keep in mind, it is a holiday, right? We did have very low volume. And starting the week, what happens? Bitcoin falls all the way back down. And currently, we have come down to about $33,366. Now, I know I haven't made a video in a few days, but when I last made the video, which was on July 1st, we were pushing down back into this blue box territory, and we spoke about this right here, right? This support that we had for Bitcoin. Now, we actually hit that support perfectly, which was nice to see, right? We did have that relief bounce. However, Bitcoin did put in a lower low on the daily time frame. Now, keep in mind, guys, we are in fact in a bear market or in a bear trend on the daily. Now, as far as the weekly is concerned, if we actually have a look over here, we have closed yet another weekly close above this 50 exponential moving average. Now, we have been doing this for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. How long can this hold? Now, we know the longer we push on a resistance or support, it eventually does begin to weaken. Now, this wouldn't be the first week that we've actually fallen below this level, but the question is, how long can the Bitcoin bulls defend this level for? Is Bitcoin actually looking for a huge breakdown? Well, Bitcoin inevitably is going to have a massive, massive move. As you can see right here, we are getting very, very close to the end of this pattern. There's not much left. We have very low volume. We're starting to get very low volatility, and we know what this means for Bitcoin. So in today's video, we need to talk about some of these extremely crucial levels for Bitcoin. I want to tell you exactly what I'm looking for in the short term and what the bulls absolutely have to do to defend these levels. We also have some interesting on-chain data to analyze, something that has not happened for Bitcoin in 6 months. Is this a bullish sign? And finally, we do have a fractal that I showed you guys earlier that could give us some incredible clues as to what the heck Bitcoin is actually doing and where it might be looking to move next. So if all that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you are not subscribed to the CryptoZombie channel, definitely get subscribed. And without further ado, let's dive in and have a look at exactly what is happening right now for Bitcoin. Now, as I said, guys, we really need to defend this level right here. If we don't, we do risk falling back to the 50 daily moving average, which is sitting at around $31,346. And as I showed you guys before, if we do have a look at this trend for Bitcoin, once we do break this support, we are looking most likely for a test to the downside at around that $25,000, $24,000 level. Now, it does not mean it's going to happen, but just so you know, if we do break below these critical levels, which I'm going to go over in just a few seconds, then yes, that is a possibility. Which is why I said in my previous video, this is absolutely what must be done for the bulls in order to maintain this trend. Now, guys, look, if we do zoom out here, we could see that we are still, in fact, in a giant macro uptrend, right? This is the weekly chart for Bitcoin. And you could see we are, in fact, putting in higher highs, and thus far, we have maintained these lower lows for Bitcoin. So everything is looking perfectly fine on the long-term weekly chart. In fact, on the weekly chart, you could argue that we are, in fact, still in a bull market. We are in a bull trend. However, when we have a look at what is happening on the daily chart, for example, over here on the CME futures, you could see it is nothing but a series of just lower highs and lower lows. Now, as I have pointed out, yes, we have dipped into the red right here in the money flow, right? So this is not a good sign for Bitcoin, but we are also having this increase in the momentum wave on the bottom side, suggesting that we could be looking for a potential blast off. But I didn't want you to get excited just yet. That's why I said to be very cautious in my last video, because obviously, you know, we have a little bit of a pump, a 5% pump, and then everybody gets bullish again. And then what does it do? It pulls back down again. We are still in the chop. We are still in the sideways range. And on the bright side, even though CME futures, due to the holiday, are not technically, trading for today, they are in fact trading for tomorrow. That is already open, you can see, and we have come down, but the good news is we did close the CME futures gap, so at least that's not something that we have to worry about. The gap has been closed, so we don't have to worry about these type of price movements, right? Because we've already closed that gap. However, looking at the CME futures, we are once again pushing down on that critical resistance, which over there is around the $31,400 level. So we're kind of seeing some confluence at around that $31,500, $600 level for Bitcoin. And I do believe that's what a lot of analysts and traders, bulls or bears alike, have their eyes on right now. Now, if we move over here, guys, I told you these were the exact levels we were looking for. We had a beautiful bounce off of this, so we did put in a higher low. This was an excellent opportunity to long. If you guys did take that trade, congratulations. And look at this. We did, in fact, get held down right here. And if we draw this line right here, guys, you could see exactly why this was such a pivotal level for Bitcoin, right? We had a lot of price action where we would dance below it, use it as support, come below it, use it as support. And finally, once we fell below it, look, it became resistance, resistance, resistance again right here. And it was our resistance yet again. Now, I am keeping my eyes on this blue box territory right here. This is a very critical level for the bulls and the bears alike. And there's not a lot of room really left in this chart. I mean, you could see that, by around July 9th, July 10th, there is literally no more room in this triangle formation for Bitcoin to keep on moving sideways. Now, yes, we could talk about the Wyckoff accumulation pattern, but I really don't want to go into that today because, like I said, everyone is looking at it, and chances are it's not going to play out like everyone anticipates it, because that's just how markets are, right? So what we need to do, the most critical level right now, this is the short term, this is the 12-hour chart, a little more detailed version of the daily chart, and you could see right here, the bottom of this blue box territory, which is sitting at around the $32,600 level, is absolutely critical to close a daily, especially a 12-hour candle, as far as I'm concerned on the charts. And you could see that we have had some amazing signals. So I do think between the 12-hour and the 4-hour, we have really to pay attention to what is happening. In fact, I'm going to show you something on the 4-hour in just a minute, which could potentially be the key to everything for Bitcoin currently. Now, you might say, well, we lost the 200 daily moving average, right? So that would be the sign of being in the bear market. Obviously, we have continued to put in lower highs, and we have continued to put in lower lows. And right here is the 200 daily moving average. So really, for us to become full-on bulls yet again, we would need to really get above this $44,000 level. But it seems like we can't even get close to it. But let me show you something that is actually really incredible. And it is actually the 200 daily on the 4-hour. Now you could see right here, right? When we had this massive uptrend, this massive breakout, we actually were using this as support here, support here. We kind of danced along the middle of it here. We found it as support here. We found it as support yet again. We did fall below it, and this was the last stand for the bulls. We had a massive sell-off once we finally lost it. And look at this, guys. When we did have this little bull trap right here, look at what we did. We were above it for just a few days, and boom, we fell back below it, and currently it is acting as support again. So I think that this is actually one of the most critical levels right now, which is this 200 daily moving average, which is around $35,530 on the 40-hour, on the 4-hour, the 40-hour. But let me show you something really, really interesting. Now, you guys remember we had talked about a very, very similar scenario that had happened right back here in August of 2020 to September of 2020. And it was almost a pattern that represented very similar what we're seeing right now, right? Where you have sort of higher high, higher high, higher high, and then all of a sudden we put in a lower high and we have this absolute landslide. Well, if we actually look at this right here, that is exactly what we did back in these levels. If we zoom in and have a look right here, you can see that this does look quite similar, right? Where we have sort of these higher highs, and then we put in this one lower high, and then we have the landslide, and then we do begin this sideways consolidation. And look, there is a bit of a fake out before then again testing this 4-hour 200 daily, which has been very important to keep our eyes on, right? So what we did the other day, and this is just having fun with charts. There's no guarantee that this is actually what is going to happen. But we actually took this massive blast off move right here, and we sort of extended it to see what could potentially be happening for Bitcoin, right? And what we did was we took this and we overlaid it on top of what's happening right now. Now, obviously, past performance does not mean that it's going to happen again, but it is quite interesting to look at the similarities between these two charts. Now, of course, there is the deviation where you can see right here, we did in fact break up before coming down and then having the blast off, but the question is, are we looking to do something similar right now? Is Bitcoin actually going to test this level right here and then have, a little bit of a fake out? Maybe we're going to have that fake out early, maybe even retest that $30,000, $29,000 level before continuing to the upside. It is a strong possibility. And if we actually measure the distance of these different levels, or we look at and compare the percentages, from top to bottom down here, we had a 21% move, and then that 21% move from the bottom until we got back above the level was about 36 days, right? Well, if we have a look over here, it's almost like we're having a cycle twice as long, right? If we look at what we fell here and twice as hard, we actually fell 54%, whereas we fell 24% the first time. And so far, we have been trading sideways for about 48 days. So does this suggest that we could potentially have another 14 days of sideways action? Well, I really have been saying that we have maybe 2 weeks left of this sideways pattern before really deciding what is going to happen. And I'm going to tell you guys, with this extremely, extremely low volume, we're going to have probably one of the most massive moves Bitcoin has seen in quite some time. And while it might seem boring right now, you might be bored out of your mind, arguably, this could be one of the most exciting times for Bitcoin, because we know that this type of consolidation always ends in an explosive move. The question is it going to be to the downside, as so many bears have predicted, or are we going to see something like we saw back in 2020? Let me know what you guys think below in the comments, but that is exactly what I'm looking at. Something else that we had mentioned on the channel was the DXY strengthening. Now look at this. Look at this, guys. We actually had a second resistance right here on this downward sloping trend, and this is causing the DXY to potentially look to fall back down again, which is why we have in fact seen the inverse correlation of the stocks going up. If you can see right here, the S&P once again putting in an all-time high, but yet Bitcoin cannot seem to catch up. Now, one thing I do want to point out, once again, shout out to Year of the Bull over on Twitter. Go follow him if you haven't. He has been speaking for over a month now about this 1.618 Fibonacci level. And we do know that if Bitcoin is in fact in a bull market, if it still is in a bull market, then it should not fall below this level. And you can see, if we actually go back and have a look at all of these previous markets, this blue area right here represents the top of the 1.618. You can see it down here. You can see it down here. If you don't know how we got to this, go watch my previous videos. You just measure from top to bottom, and this is how you get these levels, right? And you could see that we did have a perfect bounce back here, back in April of 2013. If we move forward right here, we also had a perfect bounce again off this level back in July of 2017, which signified that this was not the end of the bull run. It was just a correction within the bull run. And currently right here, zooming into our current model, if I could just stretch this out so you guys could see it a little clearer, you could see that we have once again had that perfect retest right here. You could see, look at this. We had one back here when we went from 42 and pulled back, and we've had that same bounce again. So the critical level to hold for the entire market, if we are truly in a Bitcoin bull market, is $29,965, give or take. Could we wick below it? Of course. But ultimately, we need to close at least I would like to see a daily candle above this level. So I am not going to turn full on bear just yet until we fall below this level. It is very possible we can have one more retest of the $29,000 level, but my friends, my comrades, that is it, okay? That is the level that we need to keep our eyes on. So for me right now, I still consider this accumulation phase. I still am saying we are in a macro bull trend. We are definitely in a bear trend on the daily. You can't argue that, okay? We are in a downtrend. But if we look at the overall, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, we are still in an uptrend, all right? And we need to hold the $29,976 level. So that is essentially it as far as the technical analysis is concerned. But if you guys are interested, what I'm really looking for is breaking above this right here, this 200 on the 4. And what I really want to see is us to, if we do come down here, I want to see us bounce at the top of this blue box territory, and I'm also keeping my eyes on this momentum wave down here. If we can get that level breaking above that 200 daily on the 4 hour, we can get some support at the bottom of this blue box territory, and if we can get a higher, or we can get a smaller wave right here on the momentum on the 12 hour, and specifically, as we've been talking about, the 4 hour as well, okay, then I will definitely be at least a little bit more short-term bullish on Bitcoin price, and that would be an excellent opportunity to put in a long. So if you guys are interested, you can check out Bybit. That is my preferred exchange for trading Bitcoin. If you want to trade altcoins, you can check out Femex as well. There's $1,610 in bonuses below. Make sure you check out those links. And if you don't know what you're doing, don't just dive in and start trading. Make sure you watch my tutorial popping up above. I go over absolutely everything from starting for beginners all the way to advanced as well, if you guys want to learn how to do that. Now, talking about some on-chain analysis. Now, I don't know how much weight this actually holds in this sideways choppy market, but it is interesting to note that, as Will Clemente pointed out, he's been closely watching the activities of two types of Bitcoin investors as Bitcoin continues to trade above the $30,000 level. Now, he says down here, obviously we have the strong hands, we have the people that have bought in recently, we have the whales, but what he points out is, as you could see this price falling down here, you're actually seeing strong hands buying Bitcoin. So we're seeing a bit of an inverse relationship, right? And, some people, if this was the RSI, you would say it was a bit of a diversion. Well, this is on-chain analysis. He says Bitcoin is now in heavy accumulation, supply shock in play. There's been a clear bull divergence in strong hands buying versus price. He says, but check out that big spike printed last night. This force is pushing up against price. Also, whales added 64,137 Bitcoin to their holdings just yesterday alone. And according to him, the heavy accumulation of whales and strong hands comes as the amount of Bitcoin stored on exchanges saw a significant decrease in just the last 7 days. They're down 24,259 Bitcoin. And to add on to that, Santiment points out that the ratio of Bitcoin supply on exchanges actually slid down to its lowest levels since early January. This is the lowest levels that we have seen in 6 months. Now, what does this mean? Ultimately, when we're seeing very, very low levels of Bitcoin on exchanges, this tends to show that there is accumulation happening, right? Whales are taking the Bitcoin off of exchanges and they're putting it into maybe cold storage, maybe their wallets, their hot wallets even, who knows, right? They could even be sending it to some custodial solutions. They say this is a promising sign and is generally an indication that there is a decreased risk of more major Bitcoin sell-off. So this does not mean that we couldn't see the retest of that $29,000 level. But what it does mean is that there's not as much ammo, there's not as much firepower on the exchanges to actually have this selling pressure, right? The same way that when we see them sitting in a lot of stable coins, usually that means they're waiting to jump in to buy. Well, when we tend to see very low amounts of Bitcoin on exchanges, it usually means they're not looking to sell, or at least there isn't as much Bitcoin or ammo, whatever you want to call it, to be able to nuke the price, right? Lots of conflicting data happening right now in the markets. It definitely is going to be a time for the history books, looking back at this moment, thinking about what it was like to watch Bitcoin fall from 65 all the way down to 28,000 on some exchanges, having this crazy sideways potential Wyckoff accumulation. If you are living through these times right now, my goodness, what a story to tell your children and grandchildren, right? So, like Wolf of Wall Street says, the price of Bitcoin dropped over 50% in a matter of weeks, and China banned mining, which accounted for roughly 60% of the hash rate, and the network is unaffected. No bailouts, assistance from a government, or manipulation required, just the free market being free. And to just put things in perspective, I was over here browsing Reddit, and I came across this post from, it was actually IOTA Tesla, but that being said, listen to this. This is really interesting. So only 21 million people can hold an entire Bitcoin. There are 7.674 billion people in the world and growing. This doesn't consider burned or lost coins or people like Satoshi holding 1 million coins. So simple math, if we do 21 million divided by 7.6 billion, that gives us 0.274%. So you are part of the 0.274% wealthiest Bitcoin holders if you hold just a single Bitcoin. This is quite significant if you believe in Bitcoin dominating the future and everyone wanting to hold some Bitcoin. So just think about that. Think about what one Bitcoin could actually potentially be worth in the future. And I've heard crazy predictions. I've heard $1 million for a Bitcoin, a $5 million Bitcoin, a $10 million Bitcoin. Now sitting at around $33,000 right now, this seems absolutely absurd. It seems absolutely crazy. But when you really look at the grand scheme of things, when you think about all the money printing happening in the world, when you think about fiat constantly in devaluation, when you realize that, these big investors, these hedge funds, these institutions are looking for a hedge against the endless inflation of the dollar, then the obvious choice is Bitcoin. And if you're trying to trade these markets right now, it could be a little bit crazy, but in hindsight, the opportunity for accumulation is so insane right now. Even if we do fall lower, I do personally believe that by this time next year, we will be looking at these prices and absolutely kicking ourselves and laughing that we did not take this opportunity to accumulate more. So that is it for me. I am back from my little mini vacation. Thank you so much. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. I hope you were safe. And that is what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. So that's the short term and the long term overlook. We are going to be cranking out these videos on more of a daily basis. I feel like, we have taken a little bit of breaks. I think it's time to get serious. I think Bitcoin is getting very close to a super big move, and we need to be able to play this, especially if we're going to be trading. We want to make sure that we absolutely nail this next move. So thank you so much again for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos, and make sure if you are looking to trade Bitcoin on either Bybit or Femex, make sure that you watch these videos popping up right here, right now, so that you can understand how to trade profitably and responsibly. So that's it for me. My name's K-Dub. This is CryptoZombie. Until next time, stay crypto, and of course, peace out.